Well, welcome to the What's Your Superpower webinar. I am so glad that you joined us today. I am so excited to be leading, and I want to make sure that you know that if this is your first time viewing this video or being a part of this, I want to invite you to take our Superpower quiz. It's a Superpower Kryptonite quiz. You can scan this QR code right now on your screen, or you can also go to our website to take this. It's quiz.influentialyou.biz, and it will automatically help you get a leg up on what your transactional superpower may be. There's also another document that I will be referencing today, and I'm going to show that on the screen for you. It's my.influentialyou.global/personality-characteristics. That will give you a slide that you can use that we'll be referencing throughout today's presentation. And we'll begin now with a little bit about who I am and what I do here. So this is me. I'm Josh D'Amigo. I am the host of the Influential You podcast, and I serve as an advisor, and I'm also on the faculty for Influential You. I've been recognized as Young Professional of the Year by the Ventura Chamber of Commerce, was featured on the 40 Under 40 list by the Greater Conejo Chamber of Commerce. I am committed to community development. I hold a master's degree in organizational management, and I've worked and studied here at Influential You for a little over 5 years. We'll start with a brief explanation of who we are and what we do at Influential You. Since 2009, we have helped thousands of business owners, executives, and entrepreneurs become more influential, more rewarded, and more you. We teach a 4-year curriculum and have a variety of study programs, mastermind groups, and coaching offerings. And our programs are rigorous, they're application only, and we have clients all around the world. In fact, Influential You has participants all across the world, with a majority of our clients in major cities in North America, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. And you'll probably all agree with me when I say this. In order to achieve your biggest aims in life, it's going to take help, lots of help. And at Influential You, we collect ambitious clients all across the world that study together in our various programs. You're also in really good company. Here you can see many of the companies that we've worked with. You're in good hands here at Influential You. And one of my favorite slides is this one, because I get to brag a bit about some of the smartest people that I know. These are our program faculty members, with Marnie Power, who you can see there, out of Charlottesville, Virginia, John Bajent, who's out of New Zealand, Gary Ward, who's in Perth. You can see myself from California. Tim Nicholas is in Denver, Colorado. Laurel McClay is also in New Zealand. And we've also got M. Ramona Bryson, who's out of Atlanta, Georgia. Each of our program faculty have completed our 4-year curriculum and take on a very rigorous certification in order to lead programs here at Influential You. This slide shows our demographics from the clients that we work with. As you can see, we've got 42% employed, 58% self-employed, about middle of the road when it comes to men and women, and you can see the ages there that study with us. It's across all industries, professions, and cultures. We've got small to mid-sized business professionals that want to build and accelerate their business growth and their careers, and managers and executives who seek to expand their influence and autonomy within their organizations, communities, and personal lives. We do have a recommended current annual income level here at Influential You that you can see there at the bottom. Finally, what is all this about? What is Influential You? Well, we are the leading business education in transactional competence. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But we teach ambitious business professionals how to exchange more powerfully and transact for more of what they want. Now, what does that mean? More of what they want? Well, we teach that human beings are faced with inescapable and unavoidable conditions of life. These are inescapable and unavoidable conditions situations, circumstances, things that adults must tend to in order to live a satisfied life. Now, you may ignore some of the conditions of life, but if you ignore problems, that doesn't mean that they don't exist. We teach that if these conditions are left unattended, then the consequence will produce a life of hardship. In fact, we teach that each of us in these conditions of life that you see here on the screen must address these at some point in time in our human life. In our Fundamentals of Transaction program, we focus on these four conditions: health, the condition of my mind and body; activity, what I do with my mind and body; money, which we define as a tool that measures the value of your work or our ability to transact in the marketplace; and finally, career, the identity of help that we are in the marketplace. By teaching these and by applying what we teach in our programs, we find that people get these results, and our clients we get to brag about all the time on our podcast. They achieve this in their first 6 months. Number one, they hit an average personal income of 45% more than anticipated. Number two, they target and track a health aim or a money aim, and our average results are 89% of the targets for health, 103% of our target aims for financial goals in the same time period. And that's actually gone up during COVID. Now, with that taken care of, we're going to get into the conversation on superpowers today. We are going to teach people how to build transactions to get more of what they want. And we teach that in order to achieve our chief aims in life, we need to build more meaningful and powerful exchanges. Everything we're going to talk today is nestled inside of this transaction cycle. Now, we call this a transaction cycle, and we can begin at any point in our transaction, but for the ease of explanation, I'll begin by simply addressing a thing in that top left corner. I'm assessing a thing. I'm then going to move into a solution. I'm going to invite others to hear about the solution. I'm going to present my intentions, and they'll present their intentions. I'm going to contract or commit to the idea. I'm then going to do the work and take the actions to fulfill, measure the work and make sure that I did what we fulfilled that we were going to say we were going to do in the contract, and then complete by putting facts and judgments into our transaction. And then we reassess, we reinvent, and around and around and around we go. Now, today we're going to specifically discuss your transactional superpower. And if you're looking at this transaction cycle, you may have already located places where you might prefer to go to work or places that you actually really enjoy. Some of you may love coming up with new ideas. Some of you may really love just kind of getting your hands dirty and going to work. Some of you may be like myself and you prefer to build narratives or tell stories or lead webinars. And finally, some of you are really great at turning results into facts, showing us where things are possibly going wrong and offer facts and judgments to prove your points. Now, we ask this question to everyone who studies with us. What is it like to transact with you? What is it like to exchange or be in an exchange with you? Now, this is where we begin to speak about those superpowers. In our day-to-day transactions, we are doing things, we are saying things, and we're acting in ways that either speed up those transactions and make us really easy to work with, or we grind them to a halt. So once again, I'll ask you, what is it like to transact with you? How does the way that you view the world or your transactional superpower shape your view of these transactions? What liabilities might you have in those transactions? In fact, what is your unique role in the transactions that you are performing? Now, we have studied over 220 different four-quadrant models, and we teach that in exchange, people move in four easily identifiable ways. The earliest record of this sort of thinking was written in 400 BC by Hippocrates, and he noted that the four basic temperaments of human behavior were idea-oriented, theory-oriented, action-oriented, and fact-oriented. And we pull from his observations in our own models. Now, I'm going to mention the transactional superpowers very briefly right now, and then we'll dig in deeper in just a moment. This is the slide that I gave you the link for. In fact, I'll put that link back up if you're interested now in grabbing it. But you can go to my.influentialyou.global/personality-characteristics and get your own version of this. Now, we've got subjectivists. We call them inventors. These are the idealists. These are people who live in possibilities. They love possibilities. Well, if that's true, the opposite is also true, and we call those objectivists. You may have heard of an objectivist thinker. We call them producers. They're realists. The table is hard, water is wet. They're like, cool ideas, guys. We're going to get to work and get the rigor and get the stuff done. They get tasks done. They're wonderful to have on your team. We've also got constructivists. Now, we call this group performers. They're nestled between our subjectivists and our objectivists, and they love crafting narratives. They don't necessarily need to come up with the idea, and they certainly don't aim to do the fulfillment. I wonder if you can guess which one I am. Lastly, on the opposite end of the performer is our skeptics. These are deconstructivists, or as we call them, judges. They love to live in a world of facts and judgments, and they're great at pointing out dangers or hazards that may come along the way. Now, don't get mad. I'm just going to steal this slide from you. We're actually going to look at these two models side by side. If you remember our transaction cycle, what you're going to find is in our programs, we help people see where in their transactions their skill sets are an asset, and where in those transactions their skill sets are liabilities. Where in their projects are they grinding things to a halt, slowing down progress, and really robbing ourselves of our value because of our transactional superpower? Now, when I saw these two models side to side, so many things made sense to me. You and I are always transacting. So it's a valuable skill to be aware of how we're moving and think accurately about what transactions we ought to enter into in order to achieve our biggest aims in life. Today's talk is focusing on these four transactional personalities. Now, I'm going to go through each of these in detail. Once again, if you'd like to download this chart and follow along, you may. This is the link for that chart that you can go ahead and grab, my.influentialyou.global/personality-characteristics. And if you didn't take it earlier and you want to take it now, this is the link to our quiz to find out which transactional personality you might be. quiz.influentialyou.biz. Now, please accept both those gifts and feel free to keep it around your office. You can absolutely use this if you come in contact with others and see how accurate it is for you. Now, we're going to begin with inventors. Now, inventors' superpower, they tend to be future-based, idea-oriented people who are self-reliant and highly subjective in their way of thinking. However, their kryptonite is they tend to halt transactions with brand new ideas or too many ideas or a need to control things, and they may avoid or dismiss relationships and judgment. Here's a couple of the superpowers in more detail. They love the future. They have an enthusiasm to explore uncharted and often very bold futures. They also have this thing about vision and control, a mind that is often working on a 5 to 10 year plan. They're far out in the future. It's generally a vision that's worth getting behind. They're imaginative, they're optimistic, they're looking at how this could all come together for everyone involved in a lot of cases. And they generally come across in positive moods, or in other words, the glass is almost always half full of brand new possibilities. But they also have a kryptonite. And that first part is the ego. On an inventor, you can cut it with the fork. Those big ideas often come with big egos. Now, this may be required for uncharted territory, but we need to be careful, inventors, to not bully others into submission. A lot of times we need to learn to say, I don't know. They come across as independent quite often, and just because they can do it all themselves doesn't mean inventors should. In fact, that independence is a kind of poverty, and it's why sometimes many great ideas just don't take off. Be very careful. When they're uncertain or they're noodling on a problem, inventors can get broody and arrogant, and they have to be careful because they can easily kind of pass that on to others. And finally, inventors often see others as either on their level or not. They're either equals or idiots. And for many of them, there are very few equals. Now, I love this because when we get into a deeper dive, what we start to see is that they're grounded in a worldview of subjectivism. Main thing you should know here on this chart is they often say these things to others. You should, and I will. They're shoulding on people. When you're working with inventors, remember to give them space for their egos and know that it's coming. Acknowledge those thoughts as very wise. It's going to be helpful to help them move forward in transactions. In fact, the quote that I use on my CEO, John Patterson, who's an inventor, is, John, I know you already know this. It works like a charm. By simply acknowledging their brain, their thoughts, their ideas as valid and really good, you often can disarm an inventor, and they're much more willing to take on your idea. Now, from the inventor, we're going to move to the performer. So now I'm going to tell you all about how to exchange or transact with me. Now, performers tend to be much more present-based. They're relationship-oriented people. They're inclined to be really flexible in their thinking. The kryptonite, on the other hand, is that they halt transactions with relationship concerns or mood campaigns. Everyone needs to be in right, out right, upright, downright, happy all the time sometimes. They often avoid or dismiss commitments they've made, and they don't tend to look for facts. It's more feelings in a lot of ways. Now, that superpower, mood and intention. They walk into a room and set the temperature. Often they can lift a mood or set the tone. It's really wonderful to be able to be a mood pusher in my world. I can often kind of change the mood just moving around. Now, my currency is influence and relationship. I tend to have networks with lots and lots of relationships. Performers tend to be sociable, gregarious, natural storytellers. We have this gift of being able to make others feel included and welcomed. And lastly, come across as positive moods. Glass is almost always half full. There are so many new possibilities that we can achieve together. We can do this. In fact, we often use that universal we. It's pretty fun. However, we do have kryptonites. The kryptonite, relationship. Many performers fear burning bridges. They fear hurting a relationship, and oftentimes they give away too much of themselves, their time, and their money. Performers can also be flaky. While they're taking care of one person, they don't attend to the meeting time or the commitments that we gave to another person. And that can be seen as really flaky. We're often annoyant. We become intolerant of others. We often take care of everyone in the room, and anyone that disrespects another person, it's met with annoyance or intolerance. Do not insult my waiter. I will get very upset. We can also see others as buffoons. In the moment that someone disrespects us, we can start to construct a bad story as quickly as the good ones that we often create. Going deeper on the performers, we're grounded in constructivism. It's this world that's just full of intentions. We mean to do great things, but we often don't commit to them. Now, the main things that we say here is we could or you could. It's always kind of non-committal. We could do this, we could do that. When you find yourself working with a performer, give them fields in which to have their space, or another way of saying is freedom within limits. Kirk and Tibbles is another one of our co-founders. He's the co-founder with John Patterson, our CEO, and he often has said performers will give you the shirt off of their backs unless you tell them to. Then they're going to fight you to the death. Performers do not like being told what to do. If you need to work with your performers, make it a game. Praise them. We enjoy the play, and peopling is our favorite thing. Well, if you're tired of the performers, we can go to the producers, because I tell you, the producers, boy, after you've seen that wishy-washy performer, these are a breath of fresh air. Producers tend to be short-term and objective in their thinking. They're highly work-oriented doers. They're always busy doing something. Kryptonite, producers tend to halt transactions with premature or unnecessary doing. They're kind of doing too much. And they may often avoid or dismiss completion and flexibility in their thinking. Now, here's the superpowers in a little bit of a deeper way. Alliance and force. They can coordinate action. They can produce work. They're really good at delegating tasks. If you need something done, you probably need to get a producer on your project. They view the world through the immediate future. Typically, they can and they actually must see how the next 30 to 90 days are going to go. Because of this, they're really good at implementing tactics. They're determined, they're rigorous, they're often in this mood to just get things done, period. Now, that can sometimes be a positive-ish mood because the glass is half full for some possibilities, although not all of them, but they want to mainly get things moving. They want to do something. They need to get into action. Kryptonites, they want to be included. If you're not included, the producer doesn't do well. Those producers find a way to begin a plan of gossip and sabotage. It's honestly a really bad case of FOMO, the fear of missing out. They can also come across as negative because they want to move everything into a to-do list and they start barking orders, but it doesn't mean that everybody is ready to do that. In fact, those requests that you make for action can for others be seen as a negative mood altogether. When things are inconsistent or they're not being included, they become irritated. They can become belligerent. That irritation goes outright nuts, and they often see others as loyal or traitors. They often will be loyal to a fault. If you're not pulling your weight or demonstrating loyalty, you're a traitor. Being too loyal oftentimes costs producers in whole life satisfaction. Loyal to a fault. Going deeper with our producers, what you'll find here is that the producer is really grounded in objectivism, like we talked about before. It's a world of getting things done, of doing. Main thing to notice here is that they often are going to say something like, we need to, or I have to. In fact, it's sort of a producer humble brag. It's like, oh no, I am so busy. You don't actually have to worry about if they're busy or not. They're busy. So when you go to talk to a producer, just assume that they're doing something and you may be interrupting. When you're working with them, make sure to include them. They can often feel left out. Be clear about what you need help with in constructing, because producers love checklists. In fact, sometimes we joke around that producers have checklists of checklists. Be really careful with them and make sure that when you're talking with them, you're including them, getting things on checklists, and those producers are going to love you for a very long time. Now we're going to get you to the judge. Now, the judge tends to be skeptical. They rely on standards. They're looking for competence. They want evidence before they make a move. Their kryptonite, on the other hand, they tend to halt transactions with premature evidence or restrictive standards, and they may avoid and dismiss vision and repetition or the work that's necessary to get things done. Superpowers of a judge: confrontation and authority. They often are working on all the facts, and they're often establishing standards that can produce desired outcomes for the organization. They inventory and evidence the past. Those are really great resources for them. They tend to be skeptical, and some people can see that as a negative, but you ought to look at it as a positive, because many times, like myself, I'm not skeptical enough. They're unwilling to act until evidence offers a contrary standard, and they're often able to confront those who disregard the standard. They really don't have a problem yielding authority. The glass is almost always half empty, and they're waiting for you to prove that it's not. So know that sometimes, and more often than not, judges move in these critical moods, which we'll talk about a little bit in their kryptonites. Now, they have analysis paralysis quite often. Now, the skepticism is a good thing in the right situations. It will keep you out of danger. But if you never leave the shore, you can't discover new lands. In fact, that skepticism may be hurting you too much. You may be too skeptical. Don't overdo it. Oftentimes, our judges are independent. Just because they can do it all themselves, just like the inventors, doesn't mean they should. That independence, as you have already probably heard me say, is a sort of poverty, and it's why a lot of ideas never take off. Be very careful. They're often resigned, or they get righteous. They can get resigned to things that are never going to be any different, and they get righteous about it. In fact, a lot of times they will take their toys and leave at the slightest inconvenience. They often see others as stupid. They tend to see others as stupid for not being able to clearly see the facts, because that's what they consider to be truth. Going a little bit deeper with our judges, they're grounded in deconstructivism or skepticism, and we desperately need this personality. It's so important to listen to our judges. They can often come across as sort of a Monday morning quarterback. Like, you know what you should have done? It's a big thing that they will tell you. Sometimes they'll use conditional phrases like, well, I'm willing to if, and they really have those stipulations before they're actually willing to, accept or agree to do a thing. Their skepticism leans them towards beginning at no on almost any request. It's really wise to let those judges have space to say no. In fact, when I work with judges, I generally come to them with facts. Fact, and then I give them their space to figure it out. And that's really my biggest strategy to work with them. I often use our judge here at Influential You, Daryl, and I use him to vet ideas before I take them to my CEO, because he'll often help me find gaps in my thinking. Now, that's all for the Superpower webinar today. But if you have further questions on what we teach at Influential You, well, I've got some offers for you that you may consider. And if you're watching this in the future, you're not with me right now live, there will be links under this video that you can click on to help with this. The first is Thrive. If you haven't heard of us at all and you're interested in finding out more about our programs, our Thrive self-guided training may be exactly what you need. And you can subscribe to this Thrive self-guided training program, and it lets you learn at your own pace and supplement your professional development. Our subscribers get weekly live e-coaching sessions, access to a rich content library featuring exclusive video lessons from Influential You senior faculty and industry experts. You also get proven proprietary tools to accurately assess how your career is going, and you can develop a realistic strategy to achieve your aims even faster. You can sign up for a 30-day free trial, and you can also cancel at any time. That Thrive subscription is $125 a month, but if you use the coupon code 30days at checkout, you won't have to pay for the first 30 days. So I highly advise you taking advantage of that gift. Finally, if you'd like to know more, you can also book a strategy session with me where we can do a deep dive into your specific challenges. This is my job. I love doing this. I invite you to jump on my calendar and let's get a coffee right over Zoom. It'd be fine. I'm certain that I've got some powerful solutions for whatever you're dealing with, and I'd love the opportunity to tell you more. Now, you'll see links below if you're watching this video. And thank you so much for joining me on this Influential You framework when it comes to our superpowers. I hope that it's been well worth your time. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to your feedback.